The world of the Chaebol is truly magical. He just rolled his eyes at the new front desk lady because he sensed her extraordinary talent, but she mysteriously appeared in front of his yacht that night. The girl's intelligence, thoughtfulness and care left wonderful memories for the Chaebol. Since then, he always wanted to relive them. As soon as she received his message, she would show up anywhere he ordered, even comforting him through nightmares late at night. What moved the Chaebol most was that she never blackmailed him to marry into a wealthy family, but kept their secret quietly. So he decided to promote her from front desk to his wife directly, and the girl thought her dream finally came true. But the next day, she received a notice of being transferred to China. When she confronted the Chaebol, she only met the chief steward. The plane ticket and billions of checks on the table broke her heart, yet she couldn't believe it. The girl was completely stunned. She didn't know that Chaebol had tried his best. He originally wanted to marry her, but the steward told him that his mother was arranging a marriage between him and the president's daughter to help him win the inheritance. Faced with huge temptation, the Chaebol refused to compromise at first, but he was immediately attracted when he saw the president's daughter's beauty.
그런 말짱한 얼굴로 사람을 대해서 오히려 당황하게 하는.
The daughter became his new girlfriend, and Sushi was sent to Changsha. The Chaebol was about to announce his marriage news live, but Sushi suddenly appeared with his son, and his fiancée arrived at the same time. A simple greeting from Sushi made the Chaebol smell a storm coming.
안녕하세요.
The two women confronted each other, and the Chaebol ended the live broadcast in a panic. To protect the marriage, he ordered to drive Sushi away at all costs and by any means. The steward came with tens of billions in cash, but found that Sushi, who was pregnant, was extremely tough and refused all temptations and threats. She even returned all the money and walked to the Han River to die, which completely terrified the Chaebol. Sushi's wish was simple. She just wanted to share the baby's movements with her lover, have company during childbirth, and let the child see his father when born. But the Chaebol abandoned them again for power. For the sake of her unborn child, the girl finally decided to make one last desperate effort to fight for a complete family for the baby. Drawing strength from the child in her womb, she endured his ruthless humiliation and harm. Just when she was utterly despairing and on the verge of giving up, she finally touched his conscience. But to Susie's great shock, his change of heart only lasted 3 days. When the 3 days were up, he broke up with her and their child once again, and this time, he was utterly determined. Little did Susie know at the time that, for this Chaebol, marrying the president's daughter was his last lifeline. As it turned out, just a few days earlier, the tycoon's head steward had suddenly approached him, bearing a paternity test report. Upon seeing the results, the tycoon was struck as if by lightning. He simply could not bring himself to believe that he was not of his family's blood. Before he could even fully process the shock, the words the head steward spoke next left him breaking out in a cold sweat. This report was the result of a test secretly commissioned by his uncle, who had surreptitiously obtained a sample of his hair in an attempt to prevent him from becoming the heir. Fortunately, the chief steward discovered the plot in time and immediately swapped the report. Yet, the truth of the matter would inevitably be exposed sooner or later. Faced with such an agonizing choice, weighing his devoted wife and child on one side against luxury cars, wealth, and power on the other, he is torn by an immense inner struggle. After agonizing over his dilemma, he finally resolved to act like a man and head straight to the Han River to find his release. Yet, the moment he stepped into the water, the icy chill of the river instantly snapped him back to reality. For a pampered man like him, one who recoiled even at the mere sensation of cold, suicide was simply too unrealistic. A life of privilege and luxury was what he truly craved. And so, he once again abandoned the hapless mother and child, and with lightning speed hastily became engaged to the president's daughter. Yet, what he could never have imagined was that, just as he believed he had firmly secured a beautiful future for himself, Zoe, the very woman he had cast aside, was driven by an unwavering resolve for vengeance. While evading assassins with her child in tow, she honed her skills and steeled her spirit, vowing to personally strike down the faithless man who had betrayed her. One had never seen a girl so ruthless. Despite being heavily pregnant, she suppressed both her lingering love and her profound anguish, enduring it all solely so that, when the time was ripe, she could exact her retribution with her own hands against the man who had abandoned her and her child. And the target of her vengeance was none other than Park Bu-song, the heir to the 4-star group, a top-tier Chaebol family whose influence in Korea was absolute. Originally, Susie and Park Bu-song could have had a happy ending, yet, who could have imagined that this Chaebol, worth hundreds of billions, was, in reality, a despicable opportunist bent on currying favor with the powerful? Solely to leverage his status as the president's son-in-law, thereby securing his family's inheritance and living a life of unimaginable luxury that would be the envy of all, he ruthlessly abandoned Sohee and her child, turning his back on them to throw himself into the arms of the president's daughter. He went so far as to repeatedly dispatch henchmen to threaten and intimidate Susie, ensuring she would not stand in the way of his schemes. Thus, facing such a powerful and influential father and the formidable forces at his command, Susie realized that if she wanted to seek justice, she would have to rely entirely on her own efforts, arming herself by training in boxing. Yet, strangely enough, she had barely been practicing boxing for a few days when he suddenly appeared at their doorstep. His attitude had undergone a complete reversal, and he began to show concern for her and her mother. As she listened to his expressions of concern, the flame of vengeance that had ignited within Susie's heart was instantly extinguished. It turned out that, to prevent Susie from causing trouble, the other party had secretly kept her under surveillance all along. Upon witnessing Susie's frenzied training and formidable intensity, he was completely cowed, musing that this child might very well be destined for greatness. Being timid by nature, he decided to prioritize harmony and, for the time being, focus on keeping Susie appeased. Thus, through sheer tenacity, Susie successfully earned herself the right to face off against the president's daughter. Although she must currently remain in the shadows to build up her strength, one can be certain that, given her indomitable spirit and striking beauty, no matter what the future holds, Susie is bound to emerge as the ultimate victor. On his honeymoon with his new bride, he secretly brought along his pregnant ex-girlfriend. While his heiress wife sat beside him in first class, he would ceaselessly slip away to the central lounge area to meet with his ex. This clandestine back and forth continued for 5 years. Yet, throughout this half-decade, his life seemed to proceed with an almost supernatural ease. Not only did he manage to keep his heiress wife completely in the dark, but, leveraging the influence of her father, a sitting president, he also successfully secured the family succession, rising to become the undisputed head of the 4 great families. It truly felt to him as though the heavens themselves were conspiring in his favor. His wife and ex-girlfriend, 2 women who were never meant to cross paths, not only met during this extraordinary period, but actually became inseparable best friends. His wife even mistook his child with the ex-girlfriend for her own. However, Sushi, who never usually fought for anything, suddenly shattered this beautiful dream. Seeing the happy photos of the family of 3 on her phone, the heiress was stunned. She didn't understand, since they had deceived her for 5 years, why not continue? Even more unexpected was that her best friend, who was clearly in the wrong, had the audacity to say, pleading for her child to be adopted into the Chaebol family. It turned out Sushi was also driven to a dead end. When she sent the heiress, who had fainted, to the hospital, the sharp-eyed mother-in-law sensed something wrong. Seeing the mother and child as a threat to the family's relationship with the president's family, she decided to eliminate them. Driven to desperation, Sushi had to find the heiress and tell her the truth, hoping she would adopt the child to save his life. In return, she would disappear forever. But what Sushi never expected was that after waking up, the heiress immediately agreed to adopt the child. However, the cost was that the shock caused her to lose her own unborn baby. Seeing the consequence of her reckless action, Sushi was drowned in deep self-blame. The woman never imagined that the man she deeply loved would try to kill her. After their secret affair was exposed, the tycoon discovered the mastermind was his uncle, whom he had forced out of the group, and that the uncle had already contacted Sushi. Thinking that the person he had ruined and the person he had abandoned had joined forces, a chill ran down the tycoon's spine, and he decided to strike first, cruelly taking the child away. Fortunately, at the last moment, the last shred of humanity in him stopped him from killing Sushi, or he might have regretted it forever. Because he had no idea how much this woman, who he nearly eliminated, loved him. The tycoon ultimately secured his position through ruthlessness, but his group went into a steep decline. The abandoned Sushi, however, relied on her beauty and kindness to gradually become a top Korean star, the dream lover of all Korean tycoons. Perhaps this is what they mean by karma.